I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're talking about Fancy Flamingo Makes Friends by a terrific author. Her name is Noreen Anne, and she has written a heartwarming children's story about courage, friendship, and the belief that you're never too little to make a big difference. Follow Fancy the Flamingo as she embarks on a brave adventure through the zoo, learning that helping others and making friends is all about heart, not size. This inspiring book teaches young readers valuable lessons about bravery, problem solving, and the power of believing in yourself. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put her in the spotlight today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her amazing book. The links are below this interview. Noreen, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan. It's good to be here.
Great to have you on the show. This is a wonderful book. How did you come up with the idea of Fancy Flamingo?
Well, I think I was trying to show that sometimes, even in families, like I realize that I've done this at times, that as much as you love your kids or the messages that you give to them can be not exactly how they're taking it. So, I
Right.
mean, it is about bravery and it is about families and friends. So it was interesting because I felt some of the things going on is things that I've experienced too.
Absolutely. And tell us about the writing process. Did the idea just come to you and you pounded it out all in one day, or did you have to think about it for a while? Tell us of what it was like writing the story.
Yeah, that's a good question. I've been writing for a while,
Mhm.
and I mean this particular book. I mean, it probably the idea came to me. A lot of my ideas come when I'm walking or just, I
Mhm.
mean, that is just very inspirational. So I wanted to create a character that had some emotional agency and
Great. And you've done it in fancy, without a doubt. That's for sure. Tell us a little bit about your writing career. I know you're involved in children's literacy also.
right. Yeah, I have my master's from DePaul in business and finance, and I worked for that for a while. And when I had my own kids, I kind of did a 360 and got into early childhood education.
Mhm.
So when I retired from there, I started writing and illustrating children's books.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Did you do the illustrations for this book?
Not for Fancy here, but I did
Okay.
do it for Cecilia Says No.
Okay. All right.
So
And
this,
Cecilia Says No. Tell us a little bit about that book.
sure. Well, Cecilia says no when friendships and boundaries collide. I mean, it is a theme. Like part of what's so important to me is the social emotional. So, um, just a springing board from Fancy, where she just learned she could be brave. Um, Cecilia says no is a quiet kid, and she's a young girl at school, and there's a classmate that keeps asking for things, and she keeps saying yes.
So she's a people pleaser. She's been saying yes too much,
Yes,
even when she doesn't want to say yes. So
yes,
eventually she learns to say no, and that's empowering. That's my guess.
you got it. I
Yeah.
mean, so she is writing her and sending her artwork to her mother, but it comes to the point where she just has to say no. So even though she is tempted by cupcakes, she says she can't keep giving away her pictures.
Wow.
So
That's
she
great.
learns
I
to say
love the
no.
illustrations in that book as well. Beautiful. So really great. How many books do you have out there? How many books have you published or do you want to publish? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, so I have about five children's books I write for children because I think they're amazing.
I
And
agree.
I'm in the process right now of a second sequel to Cecilia Says No. And it's finding voice, empowering
Great.
our young children.
Sounds great. Now, do you
Markers.
have a test audience out there? Do you have some grandkids who read the books or anything like that?
That's a great question. I don't have any grandchildren yet. So I'm in a critique group, I'm in a writing group. Many of them have grandkids, and
Right.
I enjoy doing getting into the classrooms again and doing
Yeah.
story times. So
Absolutely. That
yeah.
sounds great. That sounds great. One of the lessons, of course, in Fancy Flamingo is that children learn that being little doesn't mean that they can't make a big difference. Tell us a little bit about that message to kids.
Sure. Fancy wanted to help. The story opens and she is with the rest of the flamingos and they're all doing their chores and she wants to help, but she's told, you're too little, Fancy. And so one night when they're all sleeping, she takes off and she explores the rest of the zoo. So she runs into Jerry the giraffe, who seems friendly and smiles, and she continues on her way until she meets this big, ferocious lion.
Mm.
And he opens his mouth and she's just frightened and runs back.
Right. Sounds like a great children's story. I don't know which nickname I'm going to adopt for myself. I'm either going to be Fancy Flamingo or Jerry the Giraffe. I'll figure that out later. But this is a great story. Let's say somebody from Disney or Hulu came to you and said they wanted to turn one of your books into an animated um, movie for children. Which one would you choose and why?
Wow. Uh, well, Fancy would lend itself for just the creative and the adventures and the animals in there that can do things. And but I would have to say I think my favorite is Cecilia. And
Mhm.
and my second one, I think it's going to be better than this one. That's the sequel coming out.
Right. And do we have a working title for that yet?
Not
Yeah.
yet. Not
Okay.
for,
All right.
yeah, the sequel. Yeah.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Now,
Um,
you trained in business and then transitioned over to a educational career, basically. What was that like using one side of your brain and then the other? Did you enjoy the transition?
That's a great question. I grew up in a big family, so I was always
Hmm.
taught, study your math and science and go to college. And
Yeah.
I never got to explore like writing or, in fact, I didn't like writing when I went to college. I remember getting a paper back with all these edits and redos and all that. So I really didn't like it. But so I've enjoyed this process of just I think letting go of making mistakes and the editing process. I rejoice in that. I think that's um, things have gotten so much better through that editing process and
Absolutely.
um, and believing things don't have to be perfect. I mean, I just started out with like, this is the first book that I did illustrate, and I just started out drawing stick people.
Right, right, exactly. Well, you've graduated from drawing stick people because the illustrations in that book look lovely, including the cover, of course. Tell us about your work with Little Angels Book Club.
Yeah, so that is a non-profit, and we just do donations to different groups that are not able to afford books. So it's just being active in the community with the just the libraries and sharing the different books that sometimes, if it's not donated, they wouldn't be in their hands. So,
I think books are more important now than ever before because too many kids are spending too much time on these things. And I really think that actually stifles their imaginations and creativity. I mean, they can learn how to scroll and click and all of that stuff, and that's great. Those are useful skills for sure. But there's something about having the paper in your hand. There's something about drawing with a crayon or a crayons or something, or watercolor or whatever it is to paint as opposed to just everything being digital. It makes our lives so boring, don't you think?
oh, Logan, that's a great point. I mean, just Whatever we can do to get kids off of that, I think is helpful. And just holding something in your hand and just to know that they are creators, that they can draw and write and just to let their imaginations be explored with the paper, with the illustrations. And yeah, I mean, for me, growing up in a big family, it was a time to escape reading, finding a little corner and getting a book. I spent many times, many hours at the library, the public library. We couldn't afford to buy our own
Right,
picture books.
exactly, exactly. But that was all part of the experience. I mean, for me, I could walk to my downtown library and take out a book and never return it and get banned from the library, but that was just me. But this book is terrific. We hope to see it in children's libraries, and we hope to see it in your children's hands because this is a wonderful book. It's called Fancy Flamingo Makes Friends. It's written by Noreen Anne. It is a heartwarming children's story about courage, friendship, and the belief that you're never too little to make a big difference. In the book, you will follow Fancy the Flamingo as she embraces and embarks upon a brave adventure through the zoo, learning that helping others and making friends is not about size, it's actually about heart. Noreen, thank you so much for joining me here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan, for having me.
I appreciate your time, your insight, and your wonderful creativity. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time until next time on Spotlight.